Hi, my name is Kees, and in this video I'll talk about integrating body, mind, heart and spirit. So I'll start with spirit because it's the deepest layer. But before I do that, I want to talk about my approach for this video. I heard Robin Sharma talk about bodies. He talked about health set, mindset, spirit, soul set, and what was his other name again? Heart set. And I thought that was interesting because you hear a lot of talk about mindset, of course. I think mindset is important. But like he said, if you have some sort of emotions that are blocking that or that are not relevant, making it, then it doesn't work. It doesn't work as much for you. And I've noticed that myself, of course. But I think there's more to that picture and there's more to explain. And I'd love to take you on a journey through these different levels of your being, you could say, of who you are, because you are energy and all those layers are energy, so they're all yours. But each of these layers, they have a sort of specific guideline and best way to operate. And some of these layers are physical, some are non-physical, and it's very interesting to talk about how to operate them and operate them from a different perspective. So our deepest layer is spirit. Our most shallow layer, you could say, is the body. And between that, you have the mind and the heart. The heart are the emotions, and the mind, thoughts, etc. And the body, well, we all know the body, right? That's the the most physical layer. It's where reality happens for us. It's the experience we're having. It's very related. And if you look at spirit, first of all, then we can say all is energy because, science is very clear about that. And theology is saying everything is God, right? Which is a different word for energy, or the stuff of everything, which is there. And that stuff of everything, you could say, expresses itself in different forms, different non-physical forms. These non-physical forms, I cannot point at where they are or where they are not. That actually has to do with three of the layers we'll talk about, with the heart layer, right? Emotions, the mind layer, thoughts, the spirit layer, you could say soul layer. You can't really point at a point in the brain saying, oh, there is where thoughts are. No, the body is actually responding to thoughts, giving the brain a certain reaction. I'll talk about integrating these four because they have almost, you could say, 4 different manuals. And you can divide them in 2. So at the bottom, you would have spirit and heart. And then on top of that, you'd have mind and the body. And the deepest layer again is spirit. So what is spirit? It's the energy of everything. It's everything we are. But then there's a sort of form, a non-physical form, which is created, which is the soul. And the non-physical form is what is driving our deepest layer. Because when we're talking about us, or when I'm talking about Kees, for example, right? Then that is an individual form, which is not separate, but it is still energy, so it's still oneness, but it's energy with a different frequency. It's a type of energy. So that is that soul's energy. From the spirit layer, if the soul wants to express itself, it's not that it needs, because it feels that it is everything already. There's part of us in which we can feel that we are already everything. And sometimes we have that in euphoric moments or awakening experiences or plant medicine ceremonies or meditation retreats or something like that. We can have these deep experiences in which we understand that a part of us is feeling like I'm already complete, I'm already there, I'm already frictionless beauty, boundless love. And from this perspective, we don't have to do anything to realize anything. Basically, we can just be. And from this perspective in us, all the magic is born there. All the ideas for our life are born there. All the direction of our life is born there. And what we just need to do, also from that layer to be able to access that, is to allow it. Allow it to come up, let it be, let it flow. If we look at, the manual for getting the best out of spirit, just to summarize, is letting it be, letting it go. Then you look at the heart. And what the heart is actually the first point where spirit hits or interacts with reality as we know it, with the experience we're having. So spirit cannot be touched, it cannot be diluted, deformed, it's always pure. But the heart can definitely be formed in a way which is distorted. And what is the heart? You could say the heart is the layer where our primary emotions and reactionary emotions happen, you could say. Reactionary emotions are, I'm seeing something sad and I start crying. Or I feel sad and I start crying. It's both a reaction to my external environment. Maybe it's a reaction to my thoughts. That could be like I have a thought like I'm a loser or something and I start crying. And it's the heart responding with an emotion to that thought. That's a reactionary emotion. But there's also primary emotions, and the primary emotions are emotions that are stored, that have become part of the subconscious, that have become part of you. That is a deep layer of yours. And the way to handle these deep layers, which we might not like, for example, is to allow them, to be okay with them, but also to find them. Because when we're talking, for example, about spirit, there's no hiccups, there's no distortion possible. So that means we don't have to work on spirit, right? Spirit almost works on us in a way, or that layer works on us. But when we're talking about the heart is also best to just be allowed, and it will naturally flourish. And when emotions are allowed, basically, or we allow our heart to be sad, in love, in pain, happy, etc., then the heart is flourishing. But it can still be very much distorted. So in order to correct distortions from a heart level, we need awareness plus allowance. So we do need to visit those emotions. That's why psychology is very big, and popular psychology as well, is very big on going to a certain event. And we're recognizing more and more also in the practices of some of my psychology friends and psychologists I know, and also some of the books I've read from psychologists. They're slowly catching up to the fact that we do really need to visit those emotions. That if they're just stored there and we're not doing anything with them, then we're basically not really tackling our problems, recreating the same problems, because these stored emotions, these primary emotions, are the ones that really inform our personality. They create part of our personality. They really affect matter in a big way. And again, like I said, the way to deal with A primary emotion which is distorting you, or a distortion there, is to, when people raise their awareness, first of all, they usually become conscious of them. When people start meditating more, for example, or start working on themselves, they start noticing some of their primary emotions, or start to notice some of the patterns which they are causing at a mind and body level, which are higher levels, or more shallow levels, you could say, because this is all bubbling up to the surface. So we need that awareness plus that acceptance, or that letting be, right? That we need at the spirit level, we need that at the heart level. Because otherwise, what happens is those emotions can't flourish. You get basically a stinking pool without the flow of the river, which is refreshing it every time, right? You could almost say with some of the stored emotions, we block the flow of spirit. And then if you move a level up, and you can think of spirit, going through the heart and going then through the mind, is how spirit forms itself in the heart level is with, happy emotions. And how it forms itself in the mind level is with good ideas, usually. So how does this, this intention from spirit to form itself in a certain way, to have a certain experience, how does that form itself? Well, first you have, there's a sort of intuition, we almost feel it as, a sort of energy that comes up and it becomes a certain emotion. Maybe we feel, hey, I'm inspired, right? And then that inspiration or that happiness or whatever it is, or that excitement, turns into an idea on the level of mind. And mind is the first level if we look at the levels below that, where we have letting go or letting be as a principal thing. The mind really, and of course, like I said, using our awareness with the heart to be able to cleanse it. If we look at the mind, we do need awareness, of course, because we need to be aware of what's happening at the level of mind to be able to see some of the ideas which the spirit is putting on our path. There are reactionary thoughts and there are primary thoughts, but there are also fresh thoughts. And fresh thoughts are the thoughts which spirit gives you. It's almost like the intuition. The mind is like a computer where you're constantly recording everything you're seeing, everything you're experiencing on all levels. And you're constantly saving that. So you have this huge bank of information. And what the mind is constantly doing is, first of all, if you have these stored patterns which are related to some of those primary emotions, then those primary thoughts are the thoughts which are constantly in the programs, which are constantly reinforcing itself. It's like 95% of the thoughts we think on a day, we have thought the thought before, or we thought that exact thought the day before. Most of our mind is recycling. And what is it recycling? It's recycling, it's keeping up with our personality, because our personality, you could say, is a summary of our mind in general. Primary thoughts are a repetition of these primary emotions. They give out certain thoughts, they affect our reality, and we start thinking those thoughts. Then we have, you could say, secondary thoughts or reactionary thoughts. And what happens with them is they respond to the outside. So let's say somebody hits me in the face and I think asshole, right? That's a response. That's a sort of reaction of the mind. And then we also have these fresh thoughts coming in, which are rarer, and we need to learn how to recognize them. And we need to capture them. So what we want to do is we want to clean out some of these primary thoughts, again with awareness and with letting be. right? With our conscious attention, going to them, looking to them, and cleaning up some of these primary thoughts or stored thoughts, then the secondary thoughts, they will happen anyway, right? If somebody hits me again, I cannot really control if my mind thinks asshole or not. You know, I should just let that be. It's okay. But then those fresh thoughts which come in, right? The thoughts based on intuition, or you could say almost that have a sort of deeper feeling to them. We need to really, 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 really acknowledge them. And we need to capture them. And we need to basically make them stored. We need to really remember these are our golden ideas. These are, and they're not ours, right? They come up, yeah, they're all ours, but in a way they're not personal, right? They're not related to the body or the mind in that sense, but they come into the body and the mind from spirit. And from a mind level, what happens is we start to understand that this is a good thought, and then we need to act on it. We need to acknowledge it, right? If it feels good and it feels fresh, then we need to think, wow, this is important. A thought from spirit just entered my mind, right? It feels a different way. It feels inspired. It feels lovely. It feels free. It feels fresh. Okay, this is the one I should really watch. This is the one I should really capture. This is the one I should really act on. Okay, so in the layers below that, you would just have letting be. And then maybe using your awareness to see what you should let be or what you should let go, right? And letting it go by letting it be. So where we focus our attention to clean it up. This is the first layer, the mind layer, where we should really take action, where we think, oh wait, we just recognize that a form of energy from spirit has taken form in our mind in a great idea. We need to act upon it. So we need to, in this layer, it's very important that we recognize those thoughts and capture those thoughts, those fresh thoughts, but also act upon them. And then we come to the body. So the body is basically controlled by the mind, and it's also responding and reflecting the mind constantly. So our thoughts affect our body in a big way. We can die even by our thoughts. There's a man, and I've heard about this, that a man in the 40s died in a railway cart that was, he thought to be a freezer, right, a cool cell, but it was apparently malfunctioning. But the guy didn't know that, and he died after 3 days, just because he thought it was cold. He thought he was dying. Really, you can see it with old people as well. If they sort of give up, if they say, I don't want to live anymore, they very quickly deteriorate and die. It's a beautiful mechanism. But it can also kill you too early, maybe, if you give up, right? So our mind is extremely powerful, and it has a lot of potential. So it's very important to see what is happening at that layer. But when we come to the body again can reflect some of these fresh thoughts from the mind if we acknowledge them. And if we start to acknowledge those fresh thoughts, then we can act upon them. And this is where, with that action, we need a little bit of discipline, you could almost say. The body needs as well maybe some acceptance and some letting go. It needs some attention, maybe at some points in your body where you feel a little bit weaker. It needs a sort of loving awareness. That's why body scans or any type of awareness practice with the body is great. But it also needs to be sometimes put into action based on those fresh thoughts. It also needs some at least some discipline to be allowed, right? From a mind level, we should allow some of those good ideas to become habits, to really invest in them and almost, let's say, put the body through the motions of getting it used to a certain practice or a certain habit. Because what happens for the body to live long, it wants to save energy, because otherwise it might die, because if it's burning a lot of energy and it's not getting energy, it can die from starvation. If it's not conserving a lot of energy, then it's harder to reproduce, right? So there's lots of things where the body is actually conserving energy. So from a mind perspective, you should think, do the work and you get the energy. And it's also true, because if you want to be a person that has more energy, you should first do more and you get the energy. So from a thought perspective, from a mind perspective, that means the mind needs to decide, this is what we're doing. And then the body can catch up with that. But if you're not letting the body do much from a mind perspective, then what happens is the body is not used to much. So the body does not produce a lot of energy, right? Because it's not being worked, you could say. It's a tool that's not being used. So we want to acknowledge the body. We want to sometimes give it some attention and let it be. But most of all, we want to acknowledge those fresh thoughts and act upon them with the body. So this is how, if you look at these levels, this is how something integrates, right? What is important is getting rid of some of the primary or stored emotions and thought patterns which you don't like, and that is one thing which really helps a person. Secondly, allowing intuition to come up. Second, a certain awareness of what is happening. Because you can have a lot of thoughts and ideas, but most of them again are a reaction, are saved in, are sort of recycling from the past. And because you're recycling with the mind and with your heart, with your stored emotions, that means that a lot of the body and what the body does is actually also a sort of recycling. So it's doing the same things over and over. And that helps saving energy, of course, because all the system helps with that. But what we want to do is not only acknowledge our fresh thoughts and act upon them, but also understand that in order to see these fresh thoughts, we need to acknowledge them. And in order to acknowledge them, we need to be aware of them. And in order to be aware of them, we need to grow in our awareness. And awareness is a muscle. And that's why I still like, everybody to do a meditation practice, which can be just, resting the mind and looking at what happens in you, in yourself. And that's why people start noticing their patterns if they start working on themselves or start meditating more. That is because they become more aware. They become more sensitive and aware to what is actually happening. And sensitive not as in weak, but sensitive as in able to sense. Right? So we want to build our faculties this way so we can integrate our body and mind with our heart and our soul or our spirit. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like to see more of these videos, or you can even download the video if you'd like to have a copy of your own. I'll be here making more videos. If you have any questions about this video or about integrating, the body, the mind, some feelings, thoughts, emotions, spirit, soul, etc., then you can leave a comment, or you can schedule a call with me via the link below, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram if you haven't, @Kees Blok coaching. So happy to be able to share this with you guys, and hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.